very much. You can sit down. You know, I started running last April 9th, and winning November 2nd was because of what y'all did. So thank you very, very much. It's really nice to see people that you saw through the entire campaign. When you run for statewide office and you see people, it's a lot easier if you stay in the exact same place you saw them the first time, so you can remember who they are and everything. But you see people that we have a lot of pictures from the campaign, and so you see people out in the audience that you had your picture taken with, because we've got all sorts of pictures back in our office. So it's really nice. So thank everybody for coming. Thank everybody for your interest in our state budget. Thank everybody for your interest in Florida. So this is the greatest state, and we're going to become the #1 state for job creation. That's our job. All right. Today I'm proud to present Florida's first jobs budget. It's a budget that's designed to reduce state spending, lower taxes, and hold your government accountable. This is the budget you asked for. When I ran for governor, I offered Floridians a specific, detailed plan, 7 steps to 700,000 jobs over 7 years, and we talked about it a lot. And this budget puts that into place. This budget puts that plan into place, into action. And as I promised to do during the campaign, we reduced state spending by over $5 billion. And we returned $2 billion directly to you, the taxpayers. $2 billion. I've been in business for 35 years, and I know the importance of focusing on clear goals. And this jobs budget is focused on clear goals. It's focused on the goal of shrinking government, reducing your taxes, creating private sector jobs, not more government jobs, and holding your government accountable. It's your government, and no elected official can ever forget that it's your government. It's not a budget that dabbles. It doesn't offer a little something for every special interest or sweeteners for special people. It's a 2-year budget that faces realities absolutely right now. It doesn't put them off for later. It makes the hard decisions, but it makes the right decisions for Florida's long-term future, a bright future. The fact is the government has got to get back to its core functions, but only its core functions. And as long as 1.1 million Floridians, 1.1 million Floridians are out of work, we can't afford a government that runs wild with taxes, regulation, excessive spending, or lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits. So reviewing a governmental budget is like going through an attic in an old home. You come across some priceless things that you need to protect, but there are a lot of odd things that you wonder about that someone once thought we needed. Much of it we've outgrown, and it just doesn't fit anymore. So over the last 3 months, I've spent a lot of time in that attic, and we're cleaning it out. We're getting rid of it. There's things we need to dust off and repair and protect, and there are things we need to completely throw away. And as we know what we're doing already with regulation, we've got to re-examine this all the time. We can't just say we started this 5 years ago, so we're going to keep funding it forever and ever. Someone told me about a program the other day that they started, and it was $5,000 when they started, and now 20 years later it's a $5 million project. So let's start with the obvious. We can't spend more than we take in. We can't. And we take in enough from hardworking Floridians. We don't need to be taking in anymore. As you know, over the last few years, Florida has accepted one-time handouts from the federal government. Wrongly. Those temporary resources allowed our state and our local governments to spend way beyond their means. Think about it. That's like someone who wins the lottery thinking they're going to win it every year, so they're going to keep spending all the time. You know if you win the lottery, you're not going to win it again next year, right? Well, that's the same with government spending. It just doesn't make sense. There was never any reason to think that Florida taxpayers could afford to continue that higher level of spending once the federal handouts were gone. The false expectations created by the federal handouts are the reason we're hearing about a multi-billion-dollar deficit in our state budget. Some have been accustomed to the artificially high level of state spending made possible by the money the federal government borrowed from our grandchildren, but no longer. That level of spending was never wise and simply cannot be sustained. To those who suggest we meet these new unsustainable expectations with higher taxes, I want to send a clear signal. That is not the answer. We will not increase taxes in Florida. For the last 4 years, most Florida families and families across the country have had to learn to live with less at home. Most people are not making what they made 4 years ago. Even those who have continued to find work have been forced to make big sacrifices. There are places where several generations are crowded into tight quarters. They've given up all the extras because it's what they had to do, and they didn't want to become dependent on government. Floridians shouldn't have to spend more of their money to Tallahassee to pay for non-essential government programs or solely fund the retirement programs of government employees. Let's never forget the government has no resources of its own. None. Government can only give to us what is previously taken from us, minus a significant cut for the government middleman. Now, this jobs budget reduces taxes for Florida taxpayers. It's going to energize the economy, and it's going to get Floridians back to work. We will reduce the business taxes from 5.5% to 3%. Completely. And we'll completely phase it out by 2018. We're going to cut property taxes by $1.4 billion over the next 2 years. So together, we'll cut over $4 billion in taxes over the next 2 years, without any cuts out of the state general revenue for education. 0 cuts out of the state general revenue for education. Critics have said you can't cut taxes now. They repeat the same misguided claims we hear from what's that city? Washington, D.C. They are wrong. We will cut taxes now, and they should cut taxes now. Things are not going to improve until we figure out how to grow private sector jobs, not government jobs. You know, right after I got elected, I went to the Republican Governors Association, and what you learn very quickly is everybody ran on a campaign of getting these states back to work. And what I told Governor Perry and some other governors is whatever they figure out to do, we're going to do it better. We are. Because if you think about it, we're absolutely competing with 49 other states for jobs. I mean, you know, a business person can open their business anywhere, and they now can open in a lot of other countries people are comfortable with. So if we have higher taxes, more regulation, you know, things that make it more difficult for business people to succeed, what would you do? You'll move. So what we've got to do is make sure we are the state that every business person says, whether it's because of regulation, we only have regulation that makes sense, or taxes only have taxes that make sense, or having a governor and a government that says, I like you. I want to figure out how you can succeed. What can I do to help you as a business person succeed? That's what's going to change jobs here. And that's what we're going to do. So cutting taxes is essential to economic prosperity. We will be the #1 place in the world to live. Think about it. We have great beaches, great weather. It's not supposed to rain. We all would have been outside. It would have been nice. It wouldn't matter because I didn't have a teleprompter anyway. I don't know if Florida's going to become the best place in the world to live, work, and play. And why not? We should do it. It's up to us. The way I've always thought about everything, it's always up to us. If we all show up and do the right thing, then the right thing will happen. It's absolutely up to us. Also, this jobs budget is going to devote significant resources, $800 million over 2 years, for economic development projects and incentives that develop private sector jobs and particularly promising ventures. Now, the first question you always have is, golly, that's a lot of money, and that's, will it be spent well? Well, let me tell you my background. If you question anything about my background, I know how to get a return. I focus on how to get a return for shareholders. You're the shareholders. Taxpayer are the shareholders. All those dollars are going to be spent where you get a return on that investment. If you don't get a return, those dollars won't be spent. They'll go back into reduced taxes. So since we resolved not to raise taxes, balancing our budget means reducing the size and cost of government. In creating the jobs budget, we looked at every activity and asked whether it's the taxpayer's responsibility to pay for it. Should you pay for it? If it seems appropriate for... I sort of agree. If it seems appropriate... I always thought about it. Think about it. When we walked in, it was a $70 billion budget. $70 billion? That's a lot of money. There ought to be some efficiencies. Think about it. In every company you've ever worked for, in your own households, have you been able to save some money? Could you spend your money wiser? Yeah, we all could. And so can government. So if it seems appropriate for government to fund, we'll ask whether the way we're doing it is the smartest and most effective approach. When making budget decisions, we are doing what smart families do. Decide what's essential and protect it. And if there are any resources left over, we'll invest in things that yield great returns. When I ran for office, I said I didn't think taxpayers ought to pay for private jets to ferry public officials around the state. So my first day in office, I ordered those planes to be sold. So when you travel across the state, you drive or you fly commercial. Public officials do the same. The same thing compels me to offer a plan to stabilize and secure government employee pensions. So here's the way I look at pensions, government pensions. First, we've got to make sure, if we've made a commitment, let's make sure they're stable, that people have something they can rely on. The other side of it is they should participate and help pay for it. So we're going to do the same thing private companies do and almost every other state do, and we're going to require government employees to contribute 5% towards their own retirement. We cannot ask Florida taxpayers, most of you do not have a pension at all, to bear all the cost of pensions for government employees. By modernizing the Florida retirement system, we will save taxpayers $2.8 billion over 2 years. Other cost savings will be realized in the jobs budget by changing the way government does business. No different than if you were taking over a company. You'd say, what do they do well? What don't they do well? How do you change? State government, we buy a lot of things. We enter into a lot of contracts. We did slow that down a little bit. The first day I said that all contracts of more than $1 million, our office would review. Because just to make sure, if you're taking over a company, and what would you do? You figure out how they spend all the money. The same thing with government. You've got to look at how all the money is spent. So we're reviewing in my office all contracts for more than $1 million. state government buys a lot of things, enters into a lot of contracts, and negotiates a lot of leases. By taking a fresh approach at these purchases and renegotiating contracts and leases, along with prioritizing and eliminating wasteful spending, we will save taxpayers $660 million over 2 years. We're also going to streamline state agencies, and we'll consolidate overlapping agencies. And you have to just think, state agencies are not, personal fiefdoms. So there's just because we have it there today doesn't mean it should be there tomorrow. We have to look and see whether it's important or not. These agencies are only there to serve the interest of the taxpayers, not special interests. And if you can do it better, we're going to figure out a way to do it. If we can do it less expensively, with better service to taxpayers, that's what our job is. That's the job of state government. So by consolidating functions, reorganizing, privatizing, and sharing certain services, we will save taxpayers over $120 million over 2 years. And by eliminating programs that are not core government functions. Remember, we're going to go back to what the core function is. Not a lot of it'd be nice to have, just like that's not what you get to do right now. We're going to go back to core functions. You'll save us another $150 million over 2 years. So a lot of things in this budget should have been done before. It just wasn't done for a variety of reasons. It wasn't the pressure to do it, whatever. But we're going to do it. So one thing we're going to make sure, we're going to constrain the growth of entitlement programs. They're killing our state budgets. So as everybody knows, the Medicaid program, which is the safety net for the poor, is just killing state budgets across the country. So we're going to offer better ways to serve Floridians receiving Medicaid, the health care safety net for the poor. We will save nearly $400 million over billion would be nice. $400 million over 2 years by creating a patient-directed system. We're going to make sure that it's a system that the Medicaid recipient, the person that's receiving it, makes the decision rather than the government. This will reduce utilization of this health care safety net for the poor. It will provide freedom of choice for patients and reduce expenditures over the long term. The budget also saves $500 million by innovating the management of juvenile offenders and the management of our state prisons. There are significant opportunities to save money in our prison system. So if you listen to all this, it clearly is a lean budget that reduces state spending. It cuts taxes for Floridians, reforms the regulatory framework that has stunted economic growth. It's also a budget that holds government accountable, which is what we have to do. For the first time, the jobs budget provides a measurable goal for every single line item so that we can track and assess whether it is cost-effective in achieving its mission. At this moment, you can go online to www.letsgettowork.net. You might have heard that before. It's letsgettowork.net, but you can go on there, and every line it says what's the purpose of the expenditure and what's the measurement. So you can say, do you agree with it? And are we going to do it? And if it doesn't work, if we have a program that we've tried and it doesn't work, next year we're going to change. We're not going to keep doing the same thing. But you have the opportunity to get on there, and it's clearly delineated how every dollar is spent, so you will understand the entire budget. It's www.letsgettowork.net. We don't own .com. Is it interactive? Yeah, because there's some things. What you can do is you can compare. Last year. You can compare different years. I played with this some over the weekend, but I don't know how interactive it is. So, but I know you can do that. I did that part of it. All right. So there will be many special interests. There will be a lot of special interests that complain about the cuts to their favorite programs. But what we have to remember that we're doing this for the sake of our children and our grandchildren. just to get our state back to work. This budget is the way we're going to get our state back to work. We have to get spending under control today. We can't wait like the federal government keeps waiting. We're going to do it today in Florida. So during the campaign, I said I would present a balanced budget that reduced spending and taxes and I'm going to make good on that promise today. So finally, we are cutting state spending by $5 billion and cutting your taxes by $2 billion. So here's what I believe. I absolutely believe in accountability. I believe that I told you when I ran for governor what I was going to do, and that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm going to do it every day. What I hope from you is that you get very active in this whole campaign and make sure the right thing happens. So join me today as we set an example for the nation that you can, in fact, shrink government, return tax dollars to their rightful owners, you, and create an atmosphere that creates new and better paying jobs. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Let's get to work.